All right, so my name is April Chamberlain. I am the Technology and Library Supervisor for Trustful City Schools, which is in Alabama, just east of Birmingham. We have in our elementary schools, every student can participate in Enrich. And so Enrich for us is how to engage, reinforce, inspire, and challenge students. And it's a choice. And so all the elective teachers and then others, and so I don't work directly at that school, but they ask, would you be willing to lead a class? And so we all pitch our ideas to the students. So they have a video that they watch of all the different ideas, and then they get to pick their top three choices. And so when we did this, this was not last year, but the year before, when middle of pandemic. So I pitched my idea, and we had 80 students that wanted to participate. And so that was exciting that we had so many that were interested, but just knowing managing 80 would not work, because we meet every one day a week, and we met on Wednesdays for 35 minutes at the end of the day, so 2:15 to 2:45. So we were able to narrow it down and offer it for 40 kids, just because our space, and then it was just me and another teacher that was facilitating all 40 kids. So it was important that we could get that down. So kind of going to walk through how what I did with my class. The number one thing was building community, because the students joined, but they were from all different classes. At this elementary school, it's a K-5 school. They have almost 1,500 students. And so some of the fourth and fifth graders had never even been in a class together. So it was all about building community, making those shared experiences. So like many of you have mentioned, we did the tactile Pictionary, but also we used Google Slides, and every student had their own slide. So you'll kind of see what it looks like here. They had their own slide, and they filled this out after the tactile Pictionary. So they had to kind of share, what did they notice? What did they feel? What did they notice and observe? And then the second little box here, they had to explain why they chose the Build a Better Game Enrich opportunity. And because of building community, we recommended the students go and read at least 3 other people's slides to get to know them. And then they left comments. And so you'll see here, these are comments by myself and another student. So that was a way for all of us to kind of quickly get to know one another, but it's in a digital format. So we were able to come back multiple times, and they took their picture. Everybody had a Chromebook, so they took their picture with their Chromebook. So it was really important to build that community at the beginning so that we would have some of those shared experiences, because it really was the whole class was productive struggle. Some of the tools that we used that helped to facilitate the class was Google Classroom, because with 40 students, there was no way I could, or my partner teacher could meet the needs of every student. And so we use Google Classroom and also a HyperDoc, and I'm going to show you examples of those in just a moment. And then Screencastify. So we always talk about how we would love to clone ourselves. Well, Screencastify gave me that ability to clone myself. I made videos for the different groups, and then I would post them in their Google Classroom or link them onto the HyperDoc, so they could virtually have me even though we were in that space. And because we use Google Classroom, the students were able to look at the videos anytime, not just when we were in the same presence together. And then Amanda talked about the importance of reflection. So we use Flipgrid, and that's a way for kids to respond to a video, respond to a post or a topic. And so I had them stop and reflect twice, reflect as a group, and then had them reflect as themselves. And then we did low tech to high tech. And so Tinkercad was something that a few of the groups needed. And what I let them do is, once they tried some of the other tactile resources and said, this just isn't working for my game, that's when I would introduce Tinkercad or something else. So we're going to take some look there. This was our Google Classroom. So you see that posted things all the students could post. We were in a large, extremely large library, or that had previously been a library. It was now a gathering space. So we see all the kids everywhere there. This is an example of a HyperDoc. And so a HyperDoc is a Google Doc, or it's in a Google Slides, but it's very clear directions, because I didn't want the students asking all the time, what did you say? What am I supposed to be doing? I don't know. So it's very important that we were very clear about what each class we were doing, and all the resources they needed were in that one document. So once I showed them how to, or we made the kind of the norm is you come in, we greet each other, very short, jump into Google Classroom and look at what's the hyperdoc for that day, or that hyperdoc may go over several days. And so the students got into that process. So they were coming in and getting directly to work. There was no waiting on me time and things like that. So just having that process so that they knew and they had all the materials that they needed. So we did take board games because we were in a shorter class. We met 9 times, which they actually extended us to 12 because we asked. But the students groups together or grouped together and chose one of these games that they wanted to adapt. And at the school, during that time, we actually had 3 students who were completely blind. And so they had classmates. And so we started off and said, okay, imagine that your friends are coming over for the weekend and you decided to play Monopoly. Would this student, call my name, would the student be able to play? And they took a moment to think, well, I guess not. And so it really tapped in and tied into our students because they had friends who were visually impaired or completely blind. And one of the students in the class, his sister is completely blind. So he was able to bring in some additional knowledge base for us. This is another day that we had our hyperdocs. And so the students chose either to be Braille writers or tactile designers because we just didn't have enough resources in that. And so you see, I started having 2 different hyperdocs that gave them their guidance. So this is what they wanted to explore and then what their task. And so you see the differences there. So I just wanted to kind of point that we were in groups and then they divided themselves even further to Braille and to tactile. I'm not sure what I jumped off there. I'll just go into the hyperdoc. There we go. So we use some of the materials that you guys were talking about also with the 3D pens. I did find that a tackle box is a great way to store all of the filament for your for the 3D pens and even some of the additional resources. We did a lot of brainstorming at the beginning. And so we had this butcher paper that we really worked on. And you see they all had their devices and would really think and go from there. We spent a good bit everybody did learn to Braille because I wanted that experience together. And so you'll see that's where they were focusing on in a lot of these pictures. We looked at books that were already Brailled and had tactile images. Again, what did you notice? What did you wonder? And then we gave a lot of hands-on. So you can see this group in the right here. They were looking at games and they were like, I just don't think the paper is going to help me, or I don't think this fabric will. I need something more. So that's what this small group got introduced to Tinkercad early on. And so this was my small group instruction on the introduction to Tinkercad. But I also heavily used that Screencastify to meet the needs of each group. So I noticed as I was walking around working with groups that my Uno teams were not quite being as focused as they need to. So I made them a quick reminder video of where to go. And the same thing for Tinkercad. And so the groups that were working on Tinkercad, we ended up having 2 to 3 groups. And so I gave them specific videos for that. And Screencastify is a free tool. You can use Loom or other screencast recording. So that's, I'm not going to play it, but that's my Screencastify video. And the students would post in Google Classroom, okay, here's our file, we're ready to print, and can move from there. These 2 guys were the rock stars of Tinkercad in it. And so they would spend a lot of their time at home. They asked, could we come for lunch? Could we come after? But they used the game Quirkle and were designing their tops, their different pieces. When the principal came in, she was walking around and it was very interesting. Nobody noticed her because they were so focused on what they were doing and why they were doing it and engaged. In the 12 weeks I had with the students, I only had 1 discipline problem. It's because a girl wanted something somebody else had. That was it. 40 kids in that 35 minutes. But here are the boys showing their principal what is Tinkercad and how are they designing and why were they designing that certain way. We'll speed up because I know we're getting close on my time. So he designed, was doing the Connect 4 and doing the different pieces, and that's him testing his prototype. We did use Flipgrid, like I said, because I wanted the students to stop and reflect. And so this is what Flipgrid looks like. You post a topic and every student can post a reply. So you see, I had them reply as groups and explain. And what I love about Flipgrid is that once you post a recording, anybody else can watch your recording and give you feedback or leave a comment or thumbs up or a smiley face. And so they really liked that, but it made them stop and think and reflect on that. So that kind of is in a quick nutshell. We did not get to do it last year with everything changing for COVID. We started school last month, and so they're kind of getting in the groove, and then they're going to start Enrich again also. So definitely have a group of kids at Payne Elementary and one other school. So super excited to do that. I'm going to stop sharing and see what I missed in chat.